What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Millennial Button Mashers Podcast. This week, we're going to be specifically talking about the Xbox Showcase. Xbox probably had one of the strongest showcases they've had in years, and we're going to talk about it here. There was a great mix of new IP, franchise revivals, big AAA titles, and Game Pass editions. But there were two games specifically that stood out to me: Magicians: The Devil's Deal and Spyro: A Realm Beyond. Today, we're going to be talking about those in depth, but we'll also do a quick rapid-fire roundup at the end of the episode as well. With that, let's jump in. All right, so let's start with the biggest surprise of the entire showcase, at least for me. Magicians: The Devil's Deal. In my initial reaction, I had never heard of this game before. It looked immediately eye-catching, though, to me. And it was kind of one of those rare showcase moments where you're genuinely surprised. And that's kind of what I look for in some of these announcements. Like, don't give me the titles that we already know exist. Just give me net new IP or things that I'm going to be shocked to see. And this was one of those releases, at least for me. I think what caught my eye visually is kind of the art style. If you've been listening for a long time, you know Gavin and I are suckers for art style. But from the look of it, it's very BioShocky as well as Dishonored. So I think both of those art styles really lend well to at least my appetite for games. I really like both of those games specifically. And this just feels unique compared to anything else that was shown during the entire showcase. So what do we know about this game? What we can glean from this is that it's brand new IP. There's obviously a dark fantasy setting here, and there's a focus on stage magic and illusions. The setting that they have is in a theater land, and basically the premise behind all of this is kind of like a deal with the devil situation. Just from what I'm able to glean from this trailer, it does look like basically there was a deal with the devil that was made, and now the magician is trying to run away from him because he is obviously in debt to the devil. So this is going to be an action-adventure gameplay style game. Looks like it's going to be single-player narrative here. And we're targeting 2027, so it's really close, around the corner. Again, it could be late 2027 by the time we see this, but it does look promising, at least from what we've seen so far. So again, why does this stand out specifically for me? So it doesn't look like just a generic fantasy game, at least from what we've seen so far. It looks to have a unique identity to it as well. It obviously draws inspiration from Dishonored and BioShock, at least from what it looks like. But there is that strong brand identity. Like, you can tell this is different than those games. It's obviously just inspired by. And I think the stage magician concept is really different here. I don't think it's ever been, used in this way before. And I'm curious how the powers and the progression will work. Because you do get to see a handful of spells throughout the trailer, but we don't get to see too much about like just the progression and how the story lines up. I guess my question on that line is the gameplay going to be as unique as the premise? I think few games can actually thread the needle here and basically make it so that both are compelling. And I'm hoping that this game specifically can do that because I think games like BioShock, games like Dishonored, they do both of those. They're fun game mechanics, and they're also artistically beautiful. And I'm also curious too, is this going to be a linear game? Is this going to be a little bit more open worldy? Is it going to be open zone? So TBD on that. And also, will illusion mechanics actually matter? So for example, are we going to be able to hide in this? Like have a little illusion cast to almost kind of be like Hitman style, where we might be able to break into places that we shouldn't be in. But since we have illusionary magic, maybe we're able to break in, similar to what we see in kind of like this theater space. And I think personally, just one thing that I'll go on a side tangent with this game specifically, I think in the world of remakes and remasters, and we talked about this in a previous episode, I love the fact that new IP like this is still coming around and creativity is shining through. I think with video games right now, people are just hungry for net new content, things to sink their teeth in. But there also is a lot of uncertainty in the world, so some people might sway away, and that's why I think remasters and remakes are so prevalent right now. Let's go back to old IP. But I think new IP does matter because if we're not pushing boundaries, if we're not pushing things narratively, we're going to stagnate in terms of the storytelling department. And this is actually a positive light in that direction because I feel like this is very unique. Again, the magician style, the premise here, the art style being a good mix of the games that I've talked about before. I just think this is going to be a great rendition once it launches. Again, we're looking at 2027, but excited nevertheless to see more and more updates that come down the hatch with this specifically. All right, so now let's transition from completely new IP to a franchise I personally never thought I'd see return like this. Spyro: A Realm Beyond. First things first, I will say I was not expecting Xbox to specifically released this title, mostly because if you remember, this was old PlayStation 1 IP. I remember playing this as a kid, and was I the biggest Spyro fan? No, but I think he's such an iconic hero in that 3D platformer genre. I think this is going to be a slam dunk for me at least. So this was the biggest nostalgia hit for us millennials of the showcase. I was genuinely surprised to see it happen as well because when you see Spyro come on the screen, you immediately think, okay, they're going to remaster it again. And there was a remaster recently of the Spyro series, and maybe that just did so well, and that's why they're willing to jump into this again. But again, I was genuinely surprised nevertheless. So what do we know about this one? So we know that this is developed by Toys for Bob. Again, the ones that did the previous remaster, they're at the helm here. So they know the IP well. This is going to be a brand new adventure with a new realm to explore, and there's going to be a brand new enemy faction that we're facing here. Also, it looks like we're going to be having more open flying mechanics than before. If you remember in the previous game, there was just a lot of like running and gliding. Looks like there might be some more flying mechanics involved here. And Tom Kenny, the lead voice actor, is also going to be returning. So that's pretty exciting as well, especially as we know that that's going to be more and more important because this is obviously a nostalgia play. If they did do a brand new voice actor, it could detract from that story that they're ultimately trying to tell. So from what we understand too on this is coming out in spring of 2027. But again, it looks really, really cool. Just the art style alone, the notoriety that Spyro has in the gaming community, I think this is a slam dunk for Toys for Bob. And again, they've got the pedigree. They've done this with this IP specifically. So I think they're going to really understand the world of Spyro, where to lean in, where to make, creative differences and changes versus like keeping things the way that they were before. So I think this is going to be a really well-made game. And again, it's not another remake. That's the thing that I love here is like we're not getting another old IP reinvigorated. We're getting old IP just in a new storyline, kind of similar to how they did kind of like the Crash series not too long ago. I think this could be kind of along the same lines with the success there. And honestly, if you've listened to my channel before, you know how much I love the old 90s and early 2000s platformers. So hopefully this one can be successful so that we can open the door for other ones to come down the pike as well. And so this just feels like a fun return to childhood, return to fun, return to a character that we all know and frankly love. Even if you weren't a part of like that culture of being a huge Spyro fan, you know who he is, and he's a lovable IP, a lovable character. So I think the questions I have here is, when you think about Spyro, I've already alluded to this several times, but we played this as kids. Do we feel like this is going to try to appeal to younger players, or do we feel like this is going to try to go into the millennial crowd because the millennials are going to care about this more, it being known IP to them? I think it's a good question here. I don't know the answer. It does look very colorful, which does typically lend itself to more of a younger crowd. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because it does look like throughout there are some dark themes here, at least from the trailer that we're able to see. Again, that's not necessarily meaning that this isn't going to be a kid's game. We don't know. But it'll be interesting if they can thread the needle on nostalgia for millennials, but keeping things new, fresh, and engaging for the younger generation as well. And I'm also curious to how open world like this one will be as well. previous games in the Spyro series, because of it being an early 2000s game, have been very linear in the past. So we'll see what happens and what direction they are planning to take this on. And I'm just curious too. Platformers have done really well in the past few years. I'm wondering if this can get back to kind of like Astrobot levels of success. So we'll see. It looks very promising. Looks like the new mechanics are going to, bring a new level of engagement to this series. So I'm just hoping that we get our hands on this soon with some maybe demos and things, and we can decide for ourselves. But what do you guys think? Are you guys fans of the Spyro series? Did you not necessarily gravitate towards it as kids? I would love to hear your guys' comments in the comments below. All right, so while those two were my favorite highlights of the entire showcase, Xbox had a lot more to show. So I'll just go ahead and walk through the rest of these just in a quick hits fashion, everything else that was announced during that showcase. And I'll also link in the description below the full breakdown that's based off the Xbox website that goes through all the different things that were announced during this announcement. Again, because we got a lot of good details, a lot of good games, a lot of known IP and new looks at them. So just bear with me as I break this down formally. So Gears of War E-Day. We saw a lot of new gameplay with this one. It's actually coming quite soon, October 26th. And it's Marcus and Dom's origin story before the first Gears of War. So from the looks of it, we've seen a lot here. Looks very compelling. Looks like it's, going back to the grassroots of Gears of War. Looks fantastic visually. And we're excited to see more. I mean, it's right around the corner. October will be here before we know it. The only thing here to be aware of is that previously Gears of War was going to be on Sony platforms as well. They actually told us in this announcement that it's going to be an Xbox exclusive. So interesting if you don't have that console already, or maybe you were banking on it being on PlayStation. Unfortunately, it's going to be an Xbox exclusive. The next thing is Fable. Fable had some new gameplay. This one is coming out in February of 2027. If you guys remember, it was actually supposed to release in fall of 26. But I think just due to how close it was to GTA and the launch in November, they decided to push back to February of 27. What we could see here is Jack of Blades was also teased as well. So another character coming back into the fold from the old series. And Haley Atwell, the famous actor, is now going to be involved as the villain as well. So if you haven't heard that already, again, we'll link all the show notes below with all the announcements. But some pretty cool announcements that we got during the Xbox showcase. Couple other things. Halo Campaign Evolved. We've got some new campaign experiences, expanded missions. This is coming in July 2026, so right around the corner. The next thing was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. This one's also coming in October 2026, and there's going to be a heavy DMZ focus and some new gameplay. Not going to go into it too much here, just another Call of Duty that's coming down the pike here. Persona 6 was finally appearing on the showcase, but we have very little information. I'll actually link you guys the trailer. Basically shows a graveyard and then a P6. And this was after the Persona 4 remaster was announced. So pretty cool here, but it's going to be very far off because I think the Persona 4 remaster is supposed to come out in 27. So it's likely going to be 2028 before we actually get our hands on this one. But pretty cool that they're focused on this. Atlas is the ones that are focusing on this again. And with previous success in the Persona series, I'm sure they're going to do great in this one as well. The next thing is Crazy Taxi World Tour. This one's coming back. This is a franchise revival. It's a brand new game in the series. We're looking at 2027. Classic rock music was at the front of the home with the trailer there, so it'll be interesting to jump back into. I personally didn't play Crazy Taxi back in the day. I heard great things. It just wasn't my cup of tea, but I'm interested in jumping into this one specifically because it does look like a lot of fun. And it's just a really good game from what I've heard. And the last thing is State of Decay 3. It's still alive somehow. We still don't know exactly when this one will come, but we got some new gameplay, so we got to see things there. And it looks like they're going to be targeting 2027, but that's a loose release time frame. As you guys have probably known, they've been pushing off that release timeline for a long time at this point, but it's the best the game has ever looked. And when we saw the trailer, it actually finally feels like it's a little bit real here. So we shall see how that goes. But going back to the two games I can't stop thinking about. So I just want to kind of recap my thoughts here. We'll start with Spyro, actually, since we started the showcase with Magicians instead. I think the reason why this one stood out to me specifically is because there's a lot of childhood nostalgia tied to this. I actually remember when I had my PlayStation 1, I actually played this a lot with my sisters growing up, and frankly, her boyfriend at the time too. I don't know why that still sticks out in my head, but we would all play it together. So there's a little bit of like fondness for that for me. But this is a brand new adventure, so we're getting back into old IP that's memorable and having a brand new storyline. So I really hope, since Toys for Bob is involved here, that they do it justice. I'm sure that they will, since they know the IP pretty well from the remasters. And I'm just hoping that we can make Spyro relevant again. Back to Magicians, The Devil's Deal. Why do I care about this so much? Again, it's the most creative concept I've seen in any of these showcases so far. We're talking Sony, we're talking Game Awards, we're talking any of the ones that I've seen so far. This one was the one that caught my eye the most and got me excited the most because it wasn't a remake. It was actually brand new IP. So this was the biggest surprise. Again, as I mentioned before, that's the type of things that just draw me into these showcases, is I want to have something that leaves me surprised. I don't want to see something that's previously announced and just get more gameplay trailers. Like, I can do that on my own. I want to see what's cooking. I want to see what creativity these developers have up their sleeves. So this was the biggest surprise for me. I'm just really hoping the gameplay delivers and we get some more eyes on this soon. All right, so lastly, let's do the biggest Xbox showcase takeaway for me. To me, this is Xbox feeling confident again. They finally have a lot of IP that they're willing to release. We got a good look at Clockwork Revolution as well. I didn't mention that because, we already knew it existed, where we just know that it's targeting 2027 for a release. But there's what I mean by that is Xbox feeling confident again. They're finally making some of their IP console exclusive again, so that'll be interesting as well. What stood out to me specifically there is less focus on acquisitions of new game studios, more of a focus on the games, and I think that's going to be paying off in spades. Asha Sharma has done a great job at revitalizing the Xbox brand with small things like the logo change, the name change, all those different things. I think she's doing a lot for the gaming community right now that were loyal to Xbox, and I hope it pays off because they definitely have a lot more confidence than they have before, and I think that shows in this Xbox showcase. Again, I think the evidence was very apparent. We had Spyro at the helm, we had Gears, we had Fable, Halo, Persona, new IP was announced here too. And I guess for you guys, I'm curious, do you think Xbox has finally found its identity again? I mean, if you guys remember or have grown up similar to me, like Xbox was all the rage when I was growing up from, I want to say, 2005 to at least 2015. And it's kind of had a little bit of a fall from grace. So I'm hoping that they can get their wings back under them again and soar, because I think any competition in the gaming community hopefully will help drive creativity, hopefully lower prices. We'll see. But I think Xbox, from the looks of it for me, looks like it's got its footing again. So I'd love to hear you guys in the comments if you guys have any other thoughts otherwise, or if you agree. Definitely leave a comment below. Love to chat with you about that specifically. So what was your favorite announcement? What was the most surprising announcement that you guys saw? Most anticipated game that you guys had, or things that you saw more of that you're now even more excited about that are releasing? And also, do you think Xbox's showcase beat Summer Game Fest? I'm curious what you guys think there as well. And I just want to say thank you guys for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow along wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave a comment below if you're enjoying this. I would love to keep the dialogue going. Please stay safe and stay gaming.